Alrighty. Wait. Fuck. Here we go. Here we go. All right. So basically the worst start to a video ever, but here we are. La da da. And I don't know how to do the slideshow. From the beginning. So we're going to be doing a little bit of overview, and really it's just a complete copy of this paper, Two Eyes for an Eye, the neuroscience of force escalation by the people down there. And I think the first author did do a TED talk on this. When I was like 17, I saw that. So that was nearly half my life ago. I'm 30. So this information has been out for a long time, as most science uh, is like that. But in any case, just a funny and interesting explanation for why tit for tat isn't actually really achievable. Things always seem to escalate in simple matters, or in simple fights. They can get out of hand quickly, and how our unconscious processing of what we're doing and what is happening to us isn't perfect by design. That's how our brains work. And moreover, how we predict our actions is fundamental to how we perceive the world. And I'll kind of get into error prediction and how the cerebellum works, and blah 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 later in other videos. But for right now, I think this is one of the first pieces of science that really piqued my curiosity in this kind of um, causal chain of behaviors and our fundamental ability to interact well with the environment. So in any case, let's move on. And so get this out of here. I know this is the worst video ever made, and I literally just made this PowerPoint in less than an hour. And I have not even tried to do this before. So, I'm going to get some things wrong. It's not going to be great, and I don't care. In any case, go and read this research by yourself and whatever. So this research starts off talking about the physical conflict, talking again that about how physical conflicts tend to escalate, and we're going to investigate why. One explanation, or one way to kind of tease out why. And overall, the study demonstrates that both sides are reporting that what they think they're pushing out is a true percept, in the sense that what they believe is the force that they're generating, they think that's a true force, and it's mapped on well to the forces that they've been accosted by in some way. So an escalation is a natural byproduct of neural processing. And that kind of goes back into what I said earlier about predicting how you move. But we'll get more into this as we move on. So the experimental design is that 6 pairs of naive participants took part in a tit-for-tat experiment. Each member of a pair rested his or her left finger in a molded support. A force transducer is basically a motor that repeats the force you put into it, which was attached to a lightweight lever, or a torque motor was placed on top of his finger. A trial was started by one torque motor producing a 0.25 Newton force on one participant's finger. That's how we're getting started. That's the first initial push, and it's consistent. So 0.25 newtons, is the beginning. And participants then took turns to press with their right index finger down for 3 seconds on the force transducer, resting on the other side on the other's left index finger. They were instructed to apply the same force on the other participants that had just been exerted on them, and each participant was unaware of the instructions given to the other. So what happened? In all cases, the force escalated rapidly across the 6 pairs. There was a significance that you can see there, an average increase of 3.2 newtons over the 8 turns, corresponding to a 38% mean escalation on each turn. So each time that you're trying to map or trying to match the force applied to your finger, you're increasing the force that you're generating by 38% on average. And that's how the escalation is going up, 38%, 38%, 38% on average. And the increase was also significant within each pair of participants. So just kind of statistically, it's significant that across groups, this is increasing, and across individuals in between each pair. Thus, force escalation occurs rapidly, even under instructions designed to achieve parity, meaning matching, perfect matching. And so here we have a graph. You can see that the graph is, ascending upwards overall, and there's white and black dots corresponding to the individuals. And the first 0.25 newtons starts us off. Next, it's increasing by a little bit. The next increases quite a bit from 2 to 3, from 3 to 4 increases a little bit, 4 to 5. You can just see it happening. The only, value that's not in direct line with the trend is the movement from 6 to 7, but then it jumps again from 7 to 8, from 8 to 9. And we just see that this is I mean, it's not I want to say, it's not a clear exponential, but it's clearly not a linear trend to this line, and that's how you get the 2 eyes for 1 eye. That's where the experimental name of this research comes from. And so why is this happening? And the second design is where they examined the perception of force in an additional 12 naive participants tested individually. So there's no pairs, it's an individual test now. And a torque motor applied a brief constant force to the tip of the participant's left index finger that was resting in a molded support again. So again, we're asking the question why. So when participants were required to use their right index finger, to match the perceived force by pushing on their left index finger through the force transducer, they consistently overestimated the force required. No surprise there. So in the sense that when they're trying to match the force that they can apply, they're applying more force than they think is needed to get to the same place. This observation suggests that self-generated forces are perceived as weaker than externally generated forces of the same magnitude. So that's, again, just to say that if you press on someone's finger, they're going to observe that force as some force. And if they were to try to apply that same amount of force back, they're going to perceive it as weaker and will, I mean, if they were actually to apply the same force, they would think it's weaker than the force that was just applied to them. So they will up the force that they're going to apply to match it, and that ends up being more force than what the original value was. So this could arise from and so why is this happening? The big takeaway, not takeaway, but getting to the explanation is this could arise from a predictive process in which the sensory consequences of a movement are anticipated and used to attenuate the precepts related to these sensations. And that's kind of a mouthful, but I'll get into that at the end, or again. But here we have a graph, and you can see that this thing that I just explained is the top black dotted line. And again, you see a nonlinear rise, a positive slope line where that exchange is gaining in force in a nonlinear way in any case. And So the second condition, which is the line right below that, I'll come back to this, but so participants were required to reproduce the experienced force using their right index finger to move a joystick that controlled the force output of the torque motor. Uh, the active hand does not generate the force directly. The hand's movement is translated into a force through the torque motor. So in this unusual situation, predictive mechanisms are not employed now. And when the force was generated via the joystick, the reproduced force matched the original force much more accurately. A regression analysis showed a significant increase in both the intercept and slope when the force was applied directly rather than via the joystick. So the average increase across the 12 participants was 0.53 newtons for the intercept and 49% for the slope. And I don't know exactly all these notations and math and statistics exactly. I mean, I'd have to just refresh my memory on all these. So, if you understand what that means, great. I'm not going to explain it. The attenuation of self-generated forces occurred in our experiments, even though accurate perceptions of force was the primary requirement of the task, suggesting that such attenuation is very unlikely to be mediated via attentional mechanisms. That's really huge here. Previous studies have shown that sensory perception is attenuated in a moving arm or finger. So here at the end, so this is what I just explained is the bottom open circle line, where it's matching more closely a perfectly linear increase. And you can see in the dotted line here, that's what is the actual stepwise increase in the experimental force that's being matched here. And so in any case, you can just see that line is fairly close, the one with an open circle. And so here we have shown substantial attenuation in the resting finger when tactile stimulus is self-generated. Despite the stimuli being identical at the level of peripheral sensation, the perception of force is reduced by about half when the force is self-generated. That's amazing. So about if you're trying to do an action, your internal subjective experience of you doing that is reduced about half of what you thought was already applied to you, if that makes sense, in this matching paradigm. So force escalation can therefore be seen as a byproduct of predictive sensory attenuation. And that's an unconscious process. And that goes into error prediction and some other topics that are not included here. But so this is just raising the alarm bell to say that it's not so simple to understand directly what it is you're doing in a paradigm where you're trying to match someone's energy, and it is kind of an inevitability, as far as this simple explanation shows, and in these simple examples, that your ability to properly match someone else's force is not just extremely difficult, but perhaps impossible because of predictive sensory attenuation through unconscious processing. Blah, 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 blah.